Good evening. I'm your host, Reginald Phistleweather. Tonight on Elder Scrolls Online Masterpiece Theater, we have 3 performances. A poet's attempt to write an ode to ogres, a series of 3 fables, and a tale of an Argonian's unfortunate venture into a Draugr crypt. Please enjoy.
Many will tell of the loveliness of elves, and still more will sing of the fine human form. But where is song or sign that augurs all that is beautiful about ogres? Ugh, maybe Mother is right. Poetry is silly. It's for high elves in their mansions who have nothing better to do, who couldn't hunt their dinner if you put a roast chicken on the floor and told them to stab it with a spear. Beautiful ogres, what was I thinking? I suppose they do move in a kind of slow, majestic, stately way, but they smell awful, and they're a nuisance. It's like Mother says, if you want to impress me, try killing an ogre, not immortalizing it in verse. Well, she can have it her way then. I'm off to kill an ogre, and then when I'm done, maybe I'll write a poem about it. Bravely the elf stood strong against the club and thong, landing strikes on stinking flesh, dueling the giant to giant death. No, still not right.
Jasper Lee here. I'll be reading a few fables featuring a couple characters named Crow and Raven. My pets will be dramatizing the action for you. Here we go. Crow and Raven were watching Cormorant dive for fish. I wish I could dive, said Crow. I like to eat fish. What? Said Raven. Are you saying Cormorant can do something you cannot? That's absurd. You're twice the bird Cormorant is. You're right, said Crow, and he dove deep into the water. Half a minute later, he thrashed his way back to the surface. Raven stood nearby. Raven, gasped Crow. Why did you say that? I nearly drowned. Raven shrugged and said, I like to eat birds. Moral of the story, watch out for manipulators who use your desires against you to serve themselves. Okay, next one. Crow and Raven were watching Mourning Dove take a bath in a shallow pool. I believe I shall take a bath as well, said Crow. He flew down, splashed about in the pool, and then flew back up next to Raven. That's better, said Crow. Why is that? Said Raven. Your feathers and your beak and your eyes are just as black as before. True, said Crow. But when I flew down to the pool, it startled Mourning Dove, and she flew to her nest. Now I know where it is. Eggs for lunch, said Raven. Moral of the story, stay steady when the unexpected comes, or you might end up compromising yourself. Okay, last one. Crow and Raven sat in the tree above the roadside inn, above a drover snoring in a drunken stupor. Crow cocked his head and said, That sleeping person has a shiny pin on his shirt. It's an award, said Raven. He got it for drinking ale. If you drink the rest of the ale in his mug, you'll get a shiny pin too. Shiny pin, said Crow. He flew down to the table, drank the rest of the ale, and then fell over and couldn't get up. Raven flew down and plucked the pin from the drover's shirt. Shiny pin, she said, and flew off. Moral of the story, be wary of those who take advantage of situations for their own benefit. The last time I saw the old Argonian, I was taken by how alive he seemed, even though he was in the throes of death.
The secret of staying alive is not in running away, but swimming directly at danger. Catches it off guard.
Is that how you managed to find this claw? I had found it among his possessions, which I was helping him to divvy amongst his beneficiaries. Should it also go to your cousin, dives from below? At this, his mouth widened, exposing his fangs. If I hadn't known him as long as I had, I would think he was snarling, but I knew that to be a smile. He croaked a few times to attempt laughter, but ended up wheezing and coughing, his rancid blood spraying across the bedsheets.
Do you know what that is?
I've heard stories the same as you. Looks like one of the claws for opening the ceiling doors in the ancient crypts. I've never seen one myself before.
Then you know I would only wish that thing upon a mortal enemy. Giving it to my cousin would just be encouraging him to run into one of those barrows and get split by a draugr blade.
So you want me to have it then? Where do you even get this?
My kind can find things that your people assume were gone. Drop something to the bottom of a lake and a Nord will never see it again. Amazing what you can find along the bottoms.
He was staring at the ceiling now, but the way his fogged eyes darted around, I could tell he was seeing his memories instead of the cracked stone above us.
Did you ever try to use it? Of course. Where do you think I got this?
It was a nasty scar under his right shoulder, leaving his scales all knotted and bunched. I felt awful since I knew how much he hated talking about the battles he had been in. To him it was enough that he had survived, and any stories would amount to boasting. We both sat quietly for several minutes, his labored breathing the only sound.
You know what always bothered me? Why they even bothered with the symbols.
The what?
The symbols, you fool. Look at the claw.
I turned it over in my hand. Sure enough, etched into the face were 3 animals, a bear, an owl, and some kind of insect. What do the symbols mean, dear Kaza?
The ceiling doors. It's not enough to just have the claw. They're made of massive stone wheels that must align with the claw's symbols before they'll open. It's a sort of lock, I suppose. But I didn't know why they bothered with them. If you had the claw, you also had the symbols to open the door. So why...
Why even have a combination if you're going to write it on the key?
Exactly. But as I lay bleeding on that floor, I figured it out. The draugr are relentless, but far from clever. Once I was downed, they continued shuffling about, to no aim, no direction, bumping against one another, the walls.
So?
So the symbols on the doors weren't meant to be another lock. Just a way of ensuring the person entering was actually alive and had a functioning mind.
Then the doors
were never meant to keep people out. They were meant to keep the draugr in.
And with that, he fell back asleep. When he awoke several days later, he refused to talk about draugr at all, and would only wince and clutch his shoulder if I tried to bring him up.